The ship's engines hummed quietly as it descended through the atmosphere of the third planet. Crixtal pressed his four-fingered hand against the viewing screen, his blue skin darkening with excitement. After 3 years of planning and 6 months of travel, he was finally here. "Sensors show no active defenses," his pilot announced. "The entire system is dead, just like the record said." Crixtal nodded, his head tendrils swaying with the movement. He was young for a Valorian archaeologist, barely 60 standard years old, but he had studied the old laws more carefully than anyone else at the university. The Terran exclusion zone had been forbidden for thousands of years. The Galactic Council maintained strict boundaries around this entire region of space. But when Crixtal researched the original documents, he found something strange. Nobody remembered why the zone was forbidden. The oldest record simply said, "by ancient decree," and "for the safety of all species." That made no sense. The galaxy didn't create laws without reason. Crixtal believed the truth was simpler. This region contained technology from a civilization that died out long ago, and the elder species wanted to keep it for themselves. Now, after 10,000 years, most of those elder species were gone too. The current Galactic Council was younger, more open to exploration. When Crixtal applied for special permission to study ancient ruins of historical importance, they approved it without much question. The ship landed on a wide plain near a mountain range. Crixtal and his team of 5 researchers stepped onto the surface. The air was breathable, rich with oxygen. Plants grew everywhere, though no animals were visible. The planet seemed peaceful, empty, waiting. "There!" Crixtal pointed toward the mountains. His instruments showed massive artificial structures buried beneath the rock. "That's where we need to go." They traveled in their hover transport for 2 hours before reaching the entrance. It was enormous, a doorway 50 meters tall carved into the mountainside. Strange symbols covered the surface, unlike any language in the galactic database. "Can you translate it?" Crixtal asked his linguistics expert, a small Pixarian named Weep. Weep studied the symbols for several minutes, her 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "Some of it. The language is very old, maybe Proto-Galactic Standard. This symbol means warning. This one means sleep or death. And this phrase repeats several times. I think it says, 'do not wake,' or maybe, 'let rest.'" "Superstitious nonsense," Crixtal said confidently. "Ancient people always put scary warnings on their tombs. They thought it would keep thieves away." The door was sealed, but not locked. Crixtal's team set up power generators and connected them to the entrance mechanism. With a deep grinding sound that echoed across the valley, the massive door slowly opened. Stale air rushed out, and then lights flickered on inside, powered by systems that had somehow survived millennia. The team entered carefully. The corridor was wide enough for 20 people to walk side by side. More symbols covered the walls. The lights were strange, not glowing from bulbs, but from the walls themselves. The technology was far more advanced than anything in the current galaxy. They walked for nearly a kilometer before reaching a massive chamber. Crixtal stopped, his breath catching in his throat. The room stretched beyond sight, easily the size of a small city, and it was filled with pods, millions of crystalline pods arranged in perfect rows, each one containing a figure suspended in some kind of stasis field. "By the 7 stars," Weep whispered. "What are they?" Crixtal approached the nearest pod. Inside was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It stood upright on 2 legs, had 2 arms, and a head with 2 eyes, 1 nose, and 1 mouth. Its skin was smooth, hairless except for the top of its head. It wore some kind of uniform, dark and form-fitting. "I think," Crixtal said slowly, "I think these are Terrans. The species this zone is named for." "But nobody has ever seen a Terran," his security officer, a large Crothian named Bax, growled. "Most people think they're a myth." "Not a myth," Crixtal said, running his scanner over the pod. Very real, and perfectly preserved. This stasis technology is incredible. According to my readings, these beings haven't aged a single day since they entered these pods. How long ago was that? Weep asked. Crixtal checked his instruments twice to be sure. 10,000 years, maybe more. The team spread out, scanning different areas of the chamber. They found control stations with screens that still worked, showing data in that same unknown language. They found chambers beyond chambers, all filled with pods. Crixtal's estimates climbed higher with each new discovery. Millions of beings, all sleeping, all waiting. Should we be here? Weep asked nervously. Those warnings outside were written by primitive people afraid of their own technology, Crixtal insisted. But even he felt uneasy now. Why would an entire species put themselves to sleep? Why would the galaxy forbid anyone from entering this space? Bax found a central control room. The computers there were more sophisticated, with interfaces that seemed almost intuitive. Crixtal, you should see this, he called. Crixtal joined him, studying the main console. His translation software managed to decode some of the display. This panel controls the stasis system, and this one, I think this is environmental control. If we activate the facility's main power, we could access all their data. Is that wise? Weep asked. We don't know what else might activate. We came here to learn, Crixtal said. This is the greatest archaeological discovery in galactic history. We can't just walk away. He placed his hand on the activation panel. The interface recognized the touch and prompted for confirmation. Crixtal pressed the symbol he hoped meant yes. The facility thrummed to life. Power flowed through systems that had been dormant for 10,000 years. Lights brightened throughout the complex. Screens flickered on, showing data streams and status reports. The air itself seemed to change, growing warmer, fresher. And then, in the pod nearest to them, something moved. The figure inside shifted slightly. Its eyes moved beneath closed eyelids. The crystalline surface of the pod began to change, becoming clearer, less solid. Crixtal, what did you do? Bax demanded. I don't know, Crixtal admitted, backing away from the pod. I just activated the power. I didn't mean to. The pod opened with a hiss of releasing pressure. The figure inside took a sharp, gasping breath. Her eyes snapped open, dark and alert, scanning her surroundings with military precision. She was small by galactic standards, barely 1.5 meters tall, but something in the way she moved made her seem dangerous. Kim Jisoo had been asleep for 10,000 years. She had gone into the pod knowing she might never wake up, accepting that sacrifice for the good of the galaxy. Her last thought before sleep had been of Earth, of her family, of the hope that the galaxy would be better when humanity woke again. She looked at the strange aliens standing before her, their expressions showing shock and fear. She looked at the pod, at the familiar chamber around her, and she knew, with terrible certainty, that something had gone very wrong. Status report, she said in her native language, her voice rough from disuse. The aliens didn't understand, but they recognized the tone. It was the voice of someone who expected to be obeyed. Behind her, more pods began to open. More humans began to wake. And in the control room, alarms started to sound, announcing to anyone who could understand them that the awakening protocol had begun. Crixtal realized, too late, that some warnings should be taken seriously. Kim Jisoo's training kicked in before her mind fully cleared. She assessed the situation in seconds. Unknown alien species, 5 of them, showing signs of fear and confusion. Ancient facility. Emergency lighting, pods opening in sequence. She was awake, which meant something had triggered the protocols. Either 500 years had passed, or something had gone wrong. She spoke again, this time in the trade language humanity had used when they went to sleep. "Do you understand me?" The blue-skinned alien with head tendrils stepped forward cautiously. He spoke in a language that sounded similar but different. Jisu's ear caught maybe one word in 5. The language had evolved, changed over time. How much time? Behind her, more pods hissed open. She recognized Park Minho emerging from his pod 3 rows back. Good. Minho was first contact liaison, trained for exactly this situation. He would know what to do. Minho stood slowly, letting his body adjust to movement after long sleep. He saw Jisu, saw the aliens, and his expression became very calm, very controlled. That scared Jisu more than anything else. Minho only got that calm when things were very bad. "Jisu," Minho said quietly in Korean, "check your pod's readout. Tell me the date." Jisu turned to her pod's display panel. The numbers there made no sense at first. She read them again, then a third time. "That can't be right." "What does it say?" 10,217 years in stasis." Her voice stayed steady, but her hands trembled. "Minho, we were supposed to sleep for 500 years, not 10,000. More pods opened throughout the chamber. Humans emerged slowly, checking their surroundings, helping others who woke with difficulty. They had all trained for this. They had all prepared to wake in a galaxy that might have changed. But not this much. Never this much. Minho approached the aliens carefully, hands visible and empty. He spoke slowly, using the most basic words from the old trade language, adding gestures. "Friends, peace, we mean no harm." The blue alien seemed to understand some of it. He responded in his evolved language, also speaking slowly. Between them, they managed basic communication. The alien's name was Krixtal. He was an archaeologist. He had not meant to wake them. He did not know what they were. That last part made Minho pause. "He doesn't know what we are," he translated for Jisu. "He's never heard of humans." 10,000 years, Jisu said. "Our people forgot to wake us, or couldn't, or something happened to them. Or the galaxy forgot about us entirely," Minho said. More humans gathered around them now. Engineers, scientists, soldiers, diplomats. They had all been chosen for their skills, their adaptability, their ability to handle the unexpected. But this was beyond unexpected. This was nightmare. Commander Lee Junho emerged from one of the priority pods. He was older than most of them, chosen as humanity's designated speaker because of his wisdom and diplomatic skill. He listened to Minho's quick report, his face growing more serious with each word. "We need information," Junho said. "We need to know what galaxy we've woken up in. Minho, work with the archaeologist, see if we can access galactic broadcasts, news feeds, anything current. Engineering team, get our systems fully online. Medical team, check everyone who's waking up. Security team, establish a perimeter but do not threaten our guests." He looked at the aliens. "They're our first contact with this new galaxy. We need them friendly." The humans moved with purpose, each knowing their role. The facility responded to their commands, systems coming online that had been built 10,000 years ago, but still worked perfectly. Humanity had prepared for their sleep carefully, knowing they might need to act quickly upon waking. The aliens watched with growing nervousness. The small one called Weep spoke rapidly to Krixtal. The large warrior Bax put his hand on his weapon. Krixtal stopped him with a gesture. To his credit, the archaeologist seemed more curious than afraid now. "Fascinating," he said in his language, though none of the humans understood. "Look how they move. Perfect coordination, military precision. This isn't some primitive species waking confused from accidental stasis. This was planned, organized." Within an hour, Minho's team had accessed the facility's communication arrays. They tapped into galactic broadcast networks, downloaded news feeds, pulled historical databases. The information that came back was overwhelming. Minho found Junho in the command center. "Sir, you need to see this." The screens showed a galaxy neither of them recognized. The political maps were completely different. Species they had never heard of controlled vast regions of space. The old powers, the elder races that had asked humanity to sleep, were barely mentioned in historical footnotes. Some were extinct. Others had faded to insignificance. "The Galactic Council exists," Minho reported, "but it's not the same council. New species, new politics, new everything. And sir, I found references to us, to Earth, to humanity." "What do they say?" "The Terran exclusion zone is marked as forbidden territory, but when I dug deeper, nobody seems to know why. There are theories. Some think it's a quarantine zone for a plague. Some think it's a failed colony. Some think it's just bureaucratic tradition that nobody questions anymore." Minho paused. "Sir, they don't remember what we were. They don't remember why we went to sleep." "They don't remember to fear us," Junho said quietly. "No, sir. And that means—" Alarms blared throughout the facility. The security team's voice came over the intercom. "Commander, we have incoming ships. Lots of them. The aliens' expedition wasn't alone." On the screens, Krixtal's ship was broadcasting an emergency signal. Jisoo pulled up the translation. "The sleepers are awake. I repeat, the sleepers are awake. Ancient species confirmed alive in the Terran zone. Request immediate council notification." Within minutes, more ships appeared in orbit. Military vessels, scientific ships, news crews. The galaxy had noticed that something was happening in the Forbidden Zone. Junho made a decision. "Recall all humans to primary facilities. Activate the defense grid, but do not fire unless fired upon. Prepare diplomatic channels." He looked at Krixtal, who stood nervously nearby. "Tell your people we mean no harm. We will answer their questions, but we will also defend ourselves if necessary." Minho translated as best he could. Krixtal nodded, then asked a question. Minho translated back. "He wants to know who we are, what we are, why we were sleeping." Junho looked at the young archaeologist who had accidentally changed the galaxy. "Tell him we are human. We are the species that once nearly destroyed everything. We went to sleep because we were too dangerous to remain awake. We asked the galaxy to remember why they should never wake us, and it seems they forgot." When Minho translated that, Krixtal's blue skin went pale. "The warnings," he whispered. "The warnings were real." More humans woke with each passing minute. The facility's count showed 3 million pods had survived the millennia. 3 million out of 10 billion who had gone to sleep. But those 3 million were humanity's best, their brightest, their most capable. They had been chosen because they could handle anything. Now they had to prove it. Choi Sujin woke in the officer's wing. The former admiral sat up, assessed the situation, and immediately began preparing humanity's military response. Not for war, not yet, but for survival. Because in the hour since waking, one thing had become clear to all of them. The galaxy had forgotten why humanity chose to sleep. They had forgotten the warnings, they had forgotten the danger, and forgetting was the most dangerous thing of all. On Earth, ancient defense systems powered up for the first time in 10,000 years. In orbit, satellites woke and began scanning the system. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, beings who had never heard of humanity started asking questions. What were these Terrans? Where had they come from? And most importantly, what would happen now that they were awake? Junho stood in the command center, surrounded by his people, facing a galaxy that didn't know them. He took a deep breath. "All right," he said. "Let's introduce ourselves. And let's hope they're ready for what that means." The Galactic Council chamber had not been this full in 50 years. Representatives from 200 species crowded the hall, all talking at once, all demanding answers. At the center podium stood Chancellor Vrix, a Peltharian whose long career had never faced anything like this. "Order!" Vrix's voice boomed through the chamber. "We will have order!" The crowd slowly quieted. Vrix activated the main display, showing images from the Terran exclusion zone. Ships, stations, satellites, all ancient, all suddenly active. And in the center, the planet called Earth, now surrounded by a defensive network that appeared from nowhere. 3 days ago, an archaeological expedition entered the Terran zone, Vrix announced. They discovered what we believed was an extinct species. They were wrong. The Terrans, or humans as they call themselves, were not extinct. They were sleeping, and now they are awake. "This is absurd," shouted Councillor Preen, a Yaloxian trade minister. "One species barely awake, and we're treating this like an emergency? Send a fleet. Contain them. Problem solved." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Most of the council members were young species, races that had achieved space travel in the last few thousand years. They knew the Terran zone was forbidden, but not why. Ancient bureaucracy, they assumed, outdated rules from a more superstitious time. But in the back of the chamber, in the seats reserved for elder species, a different reaction was taking place. Elder Tomris of the Catharians stood slowly. He was old, even by his species' long-lived standards. His scales had faded to pale gray, and his movements were stiff with age. But when he spoke, everyone listened. "You should have left them sleeping," Tomris said. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the silent chamber. "My people remember. Not much. The memories are old and fragmented, but we remember enough." "Remember what?" Vrix asked carefully. The Catharians were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, their record stretching back nearly 15,000 years. "We remember the war," Tomris said. "The war that almost ended everything. We remember weapons that could unmake stars. We remember ships that could fold space itself. We remember a species so brilliant and so dangerous that the only solution was to ask them to leave." He looked around the chamber. "We remember the humans." "Fairy tales," Preen scoffed. "Old stories meant to scare children." "Perhaps," Tomris said. "But 3 days ago, a human ship disabled 17 of our scout vessels without destroying a single one. They shut down every weapon system simultaneously while leaving life support intact. They did this in 17 seconds. Does that sound like a fairy tale to you?" The chamber erupted in argument again. Some species wanted immediate military action. Others wanted diplomacy. A few wanted to simply reinstate the old laws and pretend the humans were still sleeping. While they argued, a human ship entered the system. Not a warship. A simple diplomatic vessel, small and unarmed. It broadcast on all frequencies, in the modern trade language, translated perfectly despite the humans having been asleep for 10,000 years. "This is Commander Choi Sujin of Earth. We come in peace. We request dialogue with the Galactic Council. We wish only to explain our situation and discuss peaceful coexistence." "It's a trick," General Vorix of the Crothian Defense Forces announced. He stood at his station, his large frame bristling with aggression. "They're testing our defenses, measuring our response time. We should destroy that ship now." "That would be murder," Vrix said. "They've made no hostile moves." "Their existence is a hostile move," Vorix growled. "Chancellor, we have a containment fleet ready. 50 warships, the newest technology in the galaxy. Let me take them to Earth and end this threat before it begins." Vrix looked uncertain. The council was divided. The elder species urged caution, but they were few in number. The younger, more numerous species wanted action. Finally, Vrix made a decision. "General Vorix, take your fleet to the Terran system. But do not fire unless fired upon. Attempt communication first. If the humans truly want peace, Give them the chance to prove it. Vorex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. As you command, Chancellor. The fleet departed within the hour. 50 warships, carrying enough firepower to sterilize a planet. They entered the Terran system in full battle formation, weapons hot, shields at maximum. They expected resistance. They expected fear. They expected the humans to surrender or fight. What they got was a single small ship, moving to intercept them. The same diplomatic vessel that had contacted the Council. As it approached, Vorex opened a channel. Human vessel, you are outmatched and surrounded. Power down your systems, and prepare to be boarded. The response came immediately. The voice was female, calm, and spoke perfect modern galactic standard. General Vorex, we have no desire for conflict. We ask only for dialogue. Stand down your weapons, and we will answer any questions you have. You do not give orders here, Vorex snarled. You are one ship. We are 50. You are ancient technology. We are modern. You will surrender or be destroyed. There was a pause. When the human spoke again, her voice carried a hint of sadness. General, we had hoped the galaxy had learned. We had hoped that 10,000 years would be enough. It seems we were wrong. Enough talk, Vorex ordered. All ships fire. 50 warships opened fire simultaneously. Enough energy to destroy a small moon filled the space where the human ship had been. But the ship wasn't there anymore. It moved, faster than Vorex's sensors could track, dodging every shot with impossible precision. And then the human ship fired back, but not with weapons. It transmitted a signal, a complex code that spread through the Crothian fleet's computer systems in milliseconds. Every weapons system shut down. Every targeting computer went dark. Every missile locked in its tube. The ships were still there, still flying, life support still working. But they were harmless. What did you do? Vorex demanded. What is this? We disabled your weapons, Choi Sujin responded. Only your weapons. Your crews are safe. Your ships are intact. You can still retreat. We do not wish to kill you, General, but we will defend ourselves. Vorex stared at his screens in disbelief. His entire fleet, the pride of the Galactic Defense Force, reduced to floating metal in 17 seconds. Just like the scout ships, just like Elder Tomris had warned. How? He whispered. Our systems are secure. They have triple encryption, quantum firewalls. How did you breach them so fast? Because we designed the original versions of those systems, Sujin said, 10,000 years ago. We know them better than you do. We know their weaknesses. We know everything about the technology you use, because you built it on foundations we laid. The truth of it hit Vorex like a physical blow. The humans hadn't been sleeping in a forgotten corner of space. They had been sleeping in the heart of everything, in the system where galactic civilization had been born. Every species used technology that originated from human innovations, modified and improved over thousands of years, but fundamentally based on what the humans had created. We will give you a message to take back to your council, Sujin said. We slept because we were asked to, because we were too dangerous, too powerful, too willing to use our strength without wisdom. We agreed to leave, to let the galaxy grow without us. We hoped that when we woke, we would find a galaxy that had learned from our mistakes. A galaxy that chose diplomacy before violence, peace before war. Her ship began to move away, leaving the disabled fleet behind. Tell them we are awake. Tell them we remember what we were. And tell them we hope to find that the galaxy has become something better than we left it. But if they force us to defend ourselves, we will. We survived 10,000 years of sleep. We will survive whatever comes next. The channel closed. Vorex's fleet drifted in space, waiting for their systems to reboot. And across the galaxy, those who watched the broadcast understood something fundamental had changed. The old warnings were not myths. The old laws were not superstition. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy was not ready. The galaxy watched the broadcast. Every species, every world, every station received the same images. The human ship, the disabled fleet, the message. Within hours, panic spread like wildfire across civilized space. On Valoria, Crixtal's homeworld, people protested outside government buildings. They had never heard of humans before last week. Now they feared them. Some demanded the government launch a preemptive strike. Others demanded peace negotiations. Most simply demanded answers that nobody could provide. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, markets crashed. If humans were real, if they were as powerful as the stories suggested, then every calculation about galactic power had just changed. Investment portfolios based on military strength became worthless overnight. Companies that built weapons using modern technology realized their products were based on 10,000-year-old human designs. In the halls of power, three factions quickly emerged. The War faction, led by General Vorix and the more aggressive species, demanded humanity be destroyed before they could fully wake all their people and rebuild their strength. The Peace faction, supported by trade species and younger civilizations, urged caution and diplomacy, and the Submission faction, terrified of human power, wanted to immediately offer surrender and whatever terms would keep humanity from becoming hostile. Chancellor Vrix called emergency sessions every day, but the Council could not agree. Meanwhile, more ships gathered near the Terran system. Not organized fleets, but individual groups. Some came seeking alliance, some came with weapons. Some came simply out of curiosity, wanting to see the legendary humans with their own eyes. On Earth, Commander Lee Junho watched the gathering ships with growing concern. "They're not coordinating," he told his advisors. "Look at the formation. 3 different military groups, 2 merchant fleets, at least a dozen independent vessels. Some are hostile, some aren't. But they're all in the same space. That's dangerous." "We could disable them like we did Vorix's fleet," Admiral Choi Sujin suggested. "And prove we're the threat they fear?" Junho shook his head. "No. We need to show them we're not monsters. We need to show them we've changed." "Have we changed?" Kim Jisoo asked quietly. The soldier had been studying the historical records, learning what had happened after humanity went to sleep. 10,000 years, and the galaxy is still fighting wars, still building weapons, still choosing violence as the first solution. Maybe we didn't change. Maybe we just went to sleep, and the galaxy stayed exactly the same. Junho had no answer for that. Instead, he made a decision. Prepare the archives. Everything. Every battle we fought, every weapon we built, every mistake we made, we're going to show them the truth. All of it. Park Minho looked shocked. "Sir, that's giving them our complete history, our vulnerabilities, our failures." "Exactly," Junho said. "We're going to show them why we went to sleep. Not because we were forced to, because we chose to. Because we looked at what we had become and decided it was better to disappear than to risk destroying everything." The broadcast went out on all frequencies, in every known language. Lee Junho spoke directly to the galaxy, his image projected on screens across hundreds of worlds. "People of the galaxy, I am Lee Junho, speaker for humanity. You are afraid of us. You should be. Let me tell you why." The images that followed were brutal. Humanity's history, unfiltered and raw. Wars that consumed entire star systems. Weapons that tore holes in reality. Battles where billions died in hours. The humans showed it all, hiding nothing. "This was us," Junho continued. 10,000 years ago, we were the most powerful species in the galaxy. We had technology beyond anything you have now. We had weapons that could crack planets, unmake stars, fold space into impossible shapes. And we used them. We used them because we were angry, because we were proud, because we thought our strength gave us the right to do whatever we wanted. The images shifted to show Earth, burning. Human cities destroyed by human weapons. We turned on ourselves. Civil war. Faction against faction. We came within days of making our own homeworld uninhabitable. And then we realized something. We were the problem. Not one group of humans or another. All of us. We were too powerful, too aggressive, too willing to destroy rather than build. More images. Humans meeting with the elder species, the ones who remembered. The Catharians, the Peltharians. Others long since faded into history. We asked them what to do. We asked how to stop ourselves. And they told us the only solution was to leave, to remove ourselves from the galaxy until we learned wisdom to match our strength. The scene showed massive sleep facilities being built, millions of humans entering pods. We could have fought. We could have refused. We had the power to destroy anyone who tried to force us. But we didn't. We chose to sleep. We chose exile over risking galactic genocide. We asked the elder species to remember why we left, to remember what we were, to never wake us until the galaxy was ready. Junho's face filled the screens again. But you forgot. 10,000 years and the truth became myth. Myth became legend. Legend became nothing. You forgot why we slept. You forgot what we were capable of. And when you accidentally woke us, you didn't remember to fear us. So now I'm telling you, remember. Remember what we were. Remember what we could become again. The images shifted one final time, showing Earth's orbital defenses. Massive platforms, sleek and deadly, floating among the clouds. These weapons still work. We built them to last. We built them to protect us while we slept. They're more powerful than anything in your current galaxy. One of these platforms could destroy a fleet. We have hundreds of them. And we haven't activated even a fraction of our old military capability. Junho let that sink in before continuing. So why haven't we? Why didn't we destroy General Vorix's fleet? Why do we keep asking for peace when we could take whatever we want by force? He leaned forward, his expression intense. Because we learned. 10,000 years in sleep, but before we closed our eyes, we learned. We learned that power without wisdom is just destruction. We learned that strength without mercy is just cruelty. We learned that winning battles means nothing if you lose your humanity in the process. The broadcast showed other images now, humans helping each other after waking, scientists working to understand the new galaxy, diplomats preparing for contact. We are still strong, we are still capable of terrible things, but we don't want to be that anymore. We went to sleep hoping the galaxy would grow wise. Now we wake and find you're still making the same mistakes we did, still building weapons, still choosing war, still believing that power gives you the right to do whatever you want. Junho stood. So here is what we offer. Peace. Partnership. We'll share our technology, our knowledge, our history. We'll help you avoid the mistakes we made. We'll work with you to build a better galaxy. But understand this. We will also defend ourselves. If you come at us with violence, we will respond with force. Not because we want to, but because we refuse to be victims. We refuse to let our choice to sleep be used as weakness. He took a deep breath. The choice is yours. Work with us, and we can build something better than what came before. Attack us, and we will do what we must to survive. But know that whatever you choose, we are not going back to sleep. We are awake. We are here. And we are not leaving. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, silence fell. People stared at their screens, processing what they had just seen. The truth was somehow worse and better than the myths. Yes, humans were dangerous. But they were also trying to be better than they were. In the Galactic Council, Elder Tomris stood again. I told you, he said simply. I told you that you should have left them sleeping. But you woke them. So now we have a choice. We can fear them and fight them and probably lose. or we can trust them and work with them and maybe, just maybe, become something better ourselves. They're manipulating us, General Vorix growled, showing us their past to make us feel guilty, making themselves look noble when they're just threats. Are they? Chancellor Vrix asked. General, they disabled your entire fleet without killing a single soldier. They've had 3 days to attack us and they haven't. Every action they've taken has been defensive or diplomatic. At what point do we consider that they might actually mean what they say? The council chamber erupted in argument again. But this time, something was different. This time, the peace faction had momentum. Because humanity had done something no one expected. They had shown their weakness along with their strength. They had admitted their failures along with their capabilities. They had asked for partnership instead of demanding submission. On Earth, Junho sat down heavily. Jisoo approached him. That was quite a speech, sir. The summit took place on neutral ground, a station orbiting the binary stars of the Kalesh system. No weapons were allowed within 10 light minutes of the station. No military vessels, just diplomats, representatives, and the truth. Lee Junho arrived with a small human delegation. Kim Jisoo as security advisor. Park Minho as cultural liaison. Choi Sujin as military representative. And carrying data cores that contained humanity's complete history. Not summaries, not edited versions, everything. The Galactic Council met them in the main conference chamber. 200 species sent representatives, from massive Crothians who barely fit through the doors to tiny Pixarians who needed special platforms to be seen. Chancellor Vrix presided, with Elder Tomris at his side. Junho placed the data cores on the central table. Our history, he said simply. Every war, every weapon, every achievement, every failure. It's all here. We're hiding nothing. Why? Counselor Preen demanded. Why give us your secrets? Your weaknesses? Because we want trust, Junho replied. Real trust. Not the kind based on fear or power, but the kind based on understanding. You need to know what we were to understand, what we're trying to become. The Council spent 3 days reviewing the data. 3 days watching humanity's rise and fall, their brilliance and brutality, their capacity for both incredible kindness and terrible cruelty. They saw weapons that could end civilizations. They saw medical technology that saved billions. They saw art and music and literature that rivaled anything in the modern galaxy. They saw genocide and compassion, war and peace, all mixed together in one complicated species. On the evening of the 3rd day, Elder Tomris called a private meeting with Junho. They sat in a small room overlooking the stars, just the two of them. My people remember fragments, Tomris said, stories passed down through generations. We remembered you as monsters, but also as saviors. We remembered the war you helped end, but also the war you almost started. We never understood how one species could be both. We never understood it either, Junho admitted. That's why we chose to sleep. We couldn't reconcile what we were. We couldn't figure out how to keep the good parts of ourselves while removing the bad. So we stepped away, hoping time would give us perspective. And did it? Junho considered. I don't know. We've been awake for less than a week. But I know we're trying. That has to count for something. Tomris nodded slowly. When you went to sleep, my grandfather was young. He met one of your diplomats, a woman named Chen. She told him that humans were a mistake that was trying to correct itself. She said your species had grown too fast, gained power before wisdom, and now you were paying the price. She asked him to remember that if you ever woke, to judge you not by what you were, but by what you were trying to become. I hope we're worthy of that judgment, Junho said. On the 4th day, unexpected news arrived. A rogue coalition of 12 militant species had launched an attack on Earth. They rejected the summit, rejected diplomacy, rejected everything except their fear. Planet-killer weapons were in flight toward humanity's homeworld. They would arrive in 6 hours. The summit erupted in chaos. Some species tried to claim they had nothing to do with it, which was true. Others remained silent, which told its own story. Chancellor Vrix ordered Galactic Defense Forces to intercept the weapons, but everyone knew they would be too late. The missiles were too fast, too close, too numerous. Junho received the news with calm that scared everyone who saw it. He stood, thanked the Council for their time, and prepared to return to Earth. "We need to defend our home," he said simply. "You can't stop 12 planet killers," General Vorix said. Even the Crothian warrior sounded shaken. "That much firepower will crack your planet's crust. Even if you shoot down 11, 1 is enough." "Then we'll shoot down all 12, Choi Sujin said. "Impossible. Not with the ships you have here, not in 6 hours." "We're not using ships," Sujin replied. She activated a display showing Earth's orbit. "We're using what we built 10,000 years ago. What we left sleeping, just like us." As they watched, the ocean around Earth began to churn. Massive structures rose from beneath the waves, ancient and enormous. They had been hidden there for millennia, camouflaged and dormant. More structures emerged from Earth's moon, from asteroids in the system, from places the modern galaxy had mapped 1,000 times without ever detecting what lay beneath. "By the stars," Tomris whispered. "How many weapons did you build?" "Enough," Junho said. "We knew we might wake to a hostile galaxy. We knew we might need to defend ourselves, so we prepared. But watch what we do." The planet killers entered the Terran system. Humanity's defense network activated, massive orbital platforms tracking the incoming weapons with perfect precision. Energy built up in weapons that hadn't fired in 10,000 years. The platforms aimed. Every species watching the feed held their breath, waiting for the destruction. And then humanity fired. Not planet-killing weapons, not devastating beams that would destroy the missiles and everything around them. Instead, they fired precision gravitational pulses, carefully calibrated to create small anomalies in space. The planet-killer missiles entered these anomalies and simply changed direction. All 12 of them, redirected harmlessly into empty space, their momentum used against them, not destroyed, redirected. No debris, no explosions, just 12 weapons that would now drift forever through empty space, far from anything they could harm. "You could have destroyed them," Vrix said, staring at the display. "You had the power to annihilate those missiles and probably trace them back to whoever launched them." "Yes," Junho agreed. "We could have, but that would mean more death, more destruction, more revenge, spawning more revenge. We've played that game before, we know how it ends." He activated another display, this one showing Earth's full defensive capability. Platforms by the hundreds. Weapons that could unmake fleets. Technology that the modern galaxy couldn't match. "This is what we are capable of. This is the power you feared. But we're not going to use it for conquest. We're not going to use it for revenge. We're going to use it to defend ourselves and to protect others who can't protect themselves." Minho stepped forward. 10,000 years ago, we were asked to sleep because we were too dangerous. We agreed because we understood the fear. We were dangerous. We still are. But danger isn't the same as evil. A knife can kill, but it can also save a life in the hands of a surgeon. Power can destroy, but it can also protect. The question isn't whether we have power. It's what we choose to do with it. Jisoo added. We chose to sleep instead of fight. We chose to redirect those missiles instead of destroy them. We choose peace every time we can. But we will never choose to be victims. That's the line. Cross it, and you'll find out exactly how dangerous we are. Respect it, and you'll find out how good our friendship can be. The council chamber fell silent. Then, surprisingly, it was General Vorix who spoke. "I wanted you dead," he said bluntly. "I believed you were a threat that needed elimination, but you disabled my fleet without killing anyone. You just protected your planet without destroying the attackers. You've had opportunities to prove you're monsters, and instead you keep proving you're trying not to be." He stood at attention, a gesture of respect in Crothian culture. "I withdraw my opposition to the peace faction." Other voices joined his. Not all. Some species still feared, still hated, still wanted humanity destroyed or contained. But enough changed their positions to shift the balance. The peace faction gained majority support. Chancellor Vrix proposed a new arrangement, a joint council. The existing Galactic Council, plus representatives from humanity. Humans would have voice, but not dominance. They would share technology, but not monopolize it. They would help guide the galaxy, but not rule it. And most importantly, they would help prevent other species from making the mistakes humanity had made. "We made mistakes at every step," Junho told the assembled council. "We built weapons before we understood the responsibility. We gained power before we developed wisdom. We achieved so much, but we nearly lost everything because we didn't have the maturity to handle what we created. If we can help you avoid that path, if we can share what we learned through painful experience, then maybe our 10,000 years of sleep will have meant something." The vote took hours, species after species casting their position. In the end, the measure passed with 70% support. Humanity would join the galactic community, not as conquerors, not as servants, as partners. The summit ended with humans and aliens working together to track down those who had launched the attack on Earth. They found them not to punish, but to understand. What fear had driven them to such desperate action? What could be done to address those fears? It was slow work, difficult work, but it was the work of building something better. Crixtal found Jesu on the station's observation deck. The young archaeologist who had accidentally changed the galaxy stood nervously beside the soldier who had been sleeping for 10,000 years. "I'm sorry," he said, "for waking you, for starting all this." Jesu shook her head. "Don't be. We were going to wake up eventually. Better now, when we can still help, than another 1,000 years from now when you might have made all the same mistakes we did." "Were you scared?" Crixtal asked. "Waking up in a galaxy that didn't remember you?" "Terrified," Jesu admitted. "Still am sometimes, but also hopeful. You forgot to fear us, yes, but that also means you forgot to hate us. We get to start fresh, with no old grudges, no ancient feuds. That's a gift, in its way." She looked out at the stars, at the ships from 100 species gathered in peace rather than war. "We slept because we were too dangerous to stay awake. We wake because someone accidentally opened the door. But maybe that's how second chances work. Not planned, not scheduled, just stumbled into by accident. And now we have to prove we deserve it." Crixtal stood beside her, looking at the same stars. "The galaxy forgot why it shouldn't wake you. Now we're learning why we should be grateful it did." On Earth, the awakening continued. More humans emerged from stasis each day, learning about their new reality, adapting to a galaxy that had moved on without them. They mourned for the time they had lost, for the billions who hadn't survived the long sleep. But they also looked forward to what they could build, what they could become. Commander Lee Junho stood in the command center, surrounded by his people, facing a galaxy that now knew them. The journey ahead would be difficult. Trust would take time to build. There would be setbacks, conflicts, misunderstandings. But they had taken the first step. They had chosen peace despite having the power to choose war. They had shown mercy despite having the capability for destruction. "All right," Junho said, echoing his words from a week ago. "Let's build something better. Together." Humanity had slept for 10,000 years. They had been forgotten, then remembered, then feared. Now they had a chance to be something new, Something better. Not the monsters the galaxy feared, but not helpless either. Strong enough to defend what mattered. Wise enough to know when not to fight. Human enough to make mistakes, but determined enough to learn from them. The galaxy had forgotten why it shouldn't wake them. Now it was learning why it should be glad it did. And humanity, after their long sleep, was finally ready to prove that second chances were worth the wait. "I hope it was enough," Junho said. "I hope they understand." "And if they don't?" Junho looked out at the stars, at the gathering ships, at the galaxy that had forgotten them. "Then we survive. Whatever it takes. We didn't sleep for 10,000 years just to die now."